Paulo Nagamura is out at the Houston Dynamo Football Club. It's weird times for a coach that at the beginning of the year was coming in on a rescue mission. Now, 8 months later, been shown the door. His two assistants are also out. If you're subscribed to this podcast, you've of course heard some of the reaction. Well, on this episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper into what it means, what direction the club is heading, and of course, welcome to Inside the Hexagon, another episode as we continue on this season for thestriker.com, your stop for any and all soccer news, especially with the Houston Dynamo, obviously Houston Dash, other places in MLS and NWSL. As always, I'm your host, Victor Araiza, joined as always by Laura Gomez. Laura, we had a bit of a space earlier in the week, had a couple of days to sort of digest this news that caught us off guard. Paulo Nagamura out as the head coach of the Houston Dynamo. Many questions, many reactions since then. But first of all, how's your been week so far after that start?
I want to say hi. Hi, Victor. How are you doing? Hey, to our listeners. I think that it's been a roller coaster. I think personally, I think as a journalist or even as a person that follows, the Houston Dynamo as a fan, when I'm not covering the team, I think that it's something good. I think that like we talked before in the podcast, I was expecting him to be, kind of let go at the end of the season. I in my mind, I was like, it's a must for me. And that's not to say that, to blame him completely, because I don't think it wouldn't be fair to blame him completely for everything, because this has been, something that's been in the years of making of the Dynamo not being successful. So we can't blame just one person, but it just wasn't fitting. I think that there needs to be more changes to the roster itself to actually do something. In the beginning, I was, not being a pessimist, but I remember telling you, I was like, you know what? I really feel like the Dynamo is not going to do anything. The first game I saw it, I was like, this is not going to go where we want it to go. So, things are about winding down the MLS and preparing for the playoffs. And I still don't see the Dynamo in it. I think it's still mathematically and other things with miracles blended in could be possible.
Officially, they could be officially out this season. They have to win against Sporting Kansas City to mathematically stay alive. But I mean, this season has been over for a couple of, we could say a couple of months now, maybe. For sure, in the last month, it's been an abysmal, turn to the season, a downward spiral, a lack of progress. There were doubts at the beginning of the year. Again, the episodes are there, the coverage is there on thestriker.com, that Nagamura wasn't the right coach to begin with, that was a misstep by the organization, right? Which in retrospect now, that turns out to be the case, and 8 months later they pull the plug. But I agree with you. I think the fact for as much as, maybe to the casual public, and I think maybe the Chronicle put it best, right? Because again, I think that'll give you the general view, ironically maybe, of an outlet that doesn't cover the team as closely, right?
Yeah.
The Dynamo are consistent at being inconsistent was, I think, the headline, and that's certainly what it looks like from the outside. I think when we dive in,
but I would argue that. I would argue that title.
Yeah, but I mean, I think. Again, but from the outside, it looks like, all right, well, this is, and again, another head coaching hire after 8 months. I mean, it was compared to the Texans and David Culley recently, right? After 1 year kind of moving on. And I think when you look at the results of this season, two separate situations. In this case, Pat Onstad, the GM in his first year, putting his marbles on and going all in on an unproven coach in Paulo Nagamura. We mentioned why it was maybe not the right choice. And again, I think this season has shown us, proven us to be right. But I agree with you. I think it is a good sign to see the club making this decision for maybe as head scratching as it may look to the general public. This was the right choice. It is better to, if things weren't working, move in another direction.
Before the season's over, I think.
Well, again, yeah, because they want to find a new coach, get to that start. Because things weren't working, I think if you wanted to salvage the season, um, this move should have probably happened maybe a month ago or more, because you
Hmm.
saw the signs and and really in timing, if you wanted to save a little bit more space for the club and spread accountability, it really should have happened after that 6-0 loss to Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
Um, but again, and it's shocking because this is a move that none of us are used to. A Dynamo that's proactive. Um, Once more, to see this happen, I think it is a good sign from the current regime, from the ownership group, from the general
Hmm.
manager Pat Onstad. I
But do you
thought
think,
initially,
and sorry to cut you off, but it's a question I've been trying to ask. Do you think that it's basically, in a sense, kind of saying that they're giving up on the season already and kind of concentrating on the next to be?
well, they should have. They should have. I mean, I
Yeah.
put this again in writing a couple. I mean, you can see where the season it wasn't going to end up in playoffs, right? There weren't the elements to turn the season around weren't there. If you wanted to back Nagamura, we mentioned it. They didn't make use of the summer transfer window, so it isn't
Sure.
all on Nagamura, right?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But there are things that you can point and say, and again, you went to the roster. Part of the press conference this week, in which you can find the press conference on our Striker YouTube. You can find some context behind it on a piece on the Striker on our Dynamo section as well. Pat Onstad, the general manager, mentions that he believes the club did back him. Sebastian Ferreira and Hector Herrera are the two biggest, most expensive signings in club
Mm-hmm.
history. The Brazilians like Seca, Thiago, Mikael, those were all Paulo Nagamura guys. Nagamura, according to Onstad, has a say in a lot of the transfers. So
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, I can understand that as well, right? I mean, they're saying he did have some input. Um, I go back to it, and you can say this about the prior coaches as well. This is maybe a tough situation in Houston, but when you sign up for this job, you also accept those conditions, right? You can't say, "Yeah, I'm going to be the guy to turn this around," and then be like, "Well, they didn't help me out." When in the beginning, maybe that was a pre-written condition. Hey, if you're going to succeed in Houston, here are the conditions. Are you cool with that? And that's a reason why a lot of other coaches have said no to the Houston Dynamo. Maybe more proven coaches have
Oh
said, "All right,
yeah.
well, if
Mm-hmm.
that's the case, then either if the money's not good and the conditions aren't well, I'm not going to sacrifice my reputation on
A
uh,
team that has a reputation of squeezing kind of like their budget.
right,
I mean,
or
compared to
or that
other
or
teams.
that's set up to not be successful. A situation that's set up to not be successful, right? Um, and and that's fair as well. I think guys like Paulo Nagamura, like Tab Ramos, Wilmer Cabrera, all guys that didn't have leverage in negotiating, which is why they were willing to take a risk or on their careers for a job like this, because at the end it is a desirable job. Don't get me wrong. For as much as people might say it's not a destination, I call BS. This is a big market. Um, a lot of coaches, and really, I would say any coach around the world would love to coach in MLS. Again, maybe if the conditions are right, maybe some coaches are more, strict than others and with requirements and help they would want. But ultimately, this is a desirable league. It's a desirable market, and it's especially now with this ownership group, it's a desirable destination for a coach who can succeed. But yeah, the standards have changed here in Houston, Texas, with the Houston Dynamo, even with the Houston Dash. Right, there is a difference here, a change of the guard, and Paulo Nagamura was not able to make the most of it.
I mean, so what you're saying is basically that the Dynamo is doing something good and proactive compared to perhaps other seasons, because we've talked about, the deja vu kind of thing, but they're
Yeah, yeah. I
showing
mean,
they're
this
showing
is
something.
yeah, this is a whole new Dynamo. This is not and this may come across as insulting to the years of the past, but this is no longer the mediocre Dynamo, right? The
Hmm.
results maybe are it's a losing season, but um, there was acknowledgement from a general manager that can sort of read the room a little bit, analyze the season, make a tough decision, and say, you know what?
Hmm.
And Onstad mentioned it the other day. the way games were going, right? There's certain things, right? The adjustment, the recent second half collapses, right? This team could easily, for as much as we wanted to focus on the positives and what could be going right. There's also things, maybe the negatives do outweigh the positives, right? The fact that again, with the 3 games given up on the road, I mean, those are 3 extra wins that Dynamo could have had away. The home record was horrible, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
talked about that early stretch where it was about 8 games out of the first 12 where they were all at home. Essentially, Dynamo should have been at least around the top 4, could have been first, really. And then just the complete collapse after the June international break. Barely winning at home, against a lousy Chicago Fire, losing to Charlotte, almost giving up the Texas Derby in Hector Herrera's debut. They won 1 game with Hector Herrera, which I think is another part of the story. And yeah, the game's given up in Vancouver, the game's given up in Minnesota, this last one in Seattle, all in position to win, really. It wasn't going to go the other way. And I think it's, in a way, it does kind of suck because, again, not to give ourselves too much of a pat on the back, right? But we sort of saw this coming. In a way, it's a lost season. From that aspect, it's, for the fans as well, right? I mean, everybody said it from the beginning. And in that aspect, I mean, it does put the general manager Onstad on the hot seat a little bit. Now the search is on for a new head coach. It is a little bit longer than last year's.
Yeah, but before you go into that, because that's one of the questions I know that a lot of people really want us to kind of discuss and kind of name some people that we think might be able to go fit and are available. But before we go into the question everybody wants, do you think that we're going to see significant roster changes in the 2023 season? Because in this last one, there was nothing, and look at the results. Because we cannot sit here and blame just the coach. Because I refuse to do that.
And that's and the argument, I think it's a twofold argument, right? Because I do think there is a good enough roster here to have made the playoffs. So I don't think having that to have been the expectation was wrong. Steve Clark was an upgraded goalkeeper.
I mean, there's good elements that they received, but I still see a lot of the old ones.
At times, Daniel Steres was a good depth piece. It's when he had to start consistently that maybe, and it's not just on him, but I'm just going kind of like quickly through a roster, right? Adam Lundqvist, I think, is a player under a different coach that can maybe raise his level or should raise his level, right? And he hasn't in the last couple of years. Derek Valentine, I think, like Steres, could be another depth piece that essentially wasn't utilized this year.
Yeah, at all.
Tim Parker, I think. Maybe you rescued some of his season. I do think he had good moments, but again, that's another guy who probably could be reaching another level.
Yeah, one thing is moments, and the other thing is like you being consistent. Because
I say it because Parker is not doing it on his own in defense, right? He's also, I think because of the salary, we expect Kadebi to be the partner with him. But when it's been in him and Steres, I think they've done well. Ethan Bartlow as well. Ethan Bartlow is a guy that we thought had promise at the beginning of the year to make a big jump by getting more minutes. We saw him get some minutes, more because of necessity, but showed well. And then we never saw him again, right? Teenage Hadebe. I know he's charismatic. People love him. I think he in that sense, I agree. I think he's a good player for the fans, but he's still a very raw player, athletic, but raw and needs to get better. A better coach would have polished him, I guess is my point there, right? Griffin Dorsey might be another one. I mean, he's a hardworking player, good goal, right, against LAFC, but maybe should be taking another jump. The same thing with Sam Junka. Zeka, I think, was one of the good signings, but then from what we've seen this last couple of weeks, he got injured. And then as we go on the roster again, Memo Rodriguez should have reached a new level.
But he's been kind of stalled. Yeah. I was going to say stale for the last.
And I guess my point, he's not the only one, right? So that's kind of what rescues him a little bit. again
Yeah,
with Hector
but
Herrera
going
was supposed. Go ahead.
exactly, but going into like, let's say having like a, the cliche, a breath of fresh air, you would say that should have been kind of pumped into these players with a new coach, right? And then again, pumped into these players with the signing of
Yeah,
HH. But
and the thing is, these players, it's been three coaches now, right? And so have all three coaches essentially sucked in that sense of trying to
and
get the
that's what
best
I'm
out of
saying.
them, or at a certain point, how much is it also on the players, right? But
Hmm.
again, I
Hmm.
think Hector Herrera, nobody questions his quality. This team should have had a more defined role with him.
Yes.
He should have been a plus, and instead they went the other way, right? Carrasquilla, I think, is one of the players you rescue this year, right?
Yes.
Has
Yes.
been good. Maybe not in the last couple of games, but for over the overall season has had a
But I
good
think he's
enough season
grown.
in
Yeah.
spite
Yeah.
of the team. Again, Matias Vera is another one that maybe with a better coach he can turn things around. Darwin Serena, I think, should be another depth piece. Young players like Palomino, Castilla, and Reigns. We saw Brooklyn Reigns make his debut the other night. But few and far between. I think again minutes for these younger players, and it's hard when you're losing, right?
And Darwin
Um,
Quintero.
the Thiago, right? That's another one. I mean, that was a player that,
Hmm.
for whatever you may say, and I know we beat this horse to death, but he's your most creative attacking player at
Hmm.
times, right? I would say for the better part of the season. Um, the right coach with the right motivation, with the right management of his minutes, I think gets more out of him. Um,
Hmm.
and again,
And he's had like bad seasons too, like
the
with
lack,
the lack
right?
of minutes, last season, and then this season kind of, it's just been a lot, I think, also mentally for him. But I don't know. I mean, it's that the very debatable question. Is it just the coach, or is it something with the players too? So
No, and
I
again,
foresee
because
change.
going through this roster, I think I'm with you. I'd rather have you can say you keep maybe guys like Clark, right? Guys like
Yeah, he would be on the must stay.
Parker, Herrera, Carrasquilla, right?
Hmm.
Vera's going to be under contract regardless. Like, so I understand. I think you can keep a fraction of this team, but I'm with you. I think this team needs a cleanse in a sense. I
Yes.
think you
Hmm.
need
And for
you
them
need
too
new
to
faces,
grow somewhere
right?
else, then if they're not doing it here.
But again, theoretically, a better coach would get more out of these players, and maybe that's what it is. But I would go that route, like you said. I would go for a bit of a cleanse here. Bring in some new faces, bring in some different players, and again,
Energy.
yeah, the different energy, and push this thing a little higher. I still think, regardless, regardless of if they go that route, regardless of the coach. And I said at the beginning of the season, this team, the biggest position of need is a creative attacking player that needs to be addressed this
Hmm.
offseason. That's a must. Just like the new coach, that's a must. That's the if the new coach is priority number one, this is priority number two. They
Yeah.
need a bona fide creative midfielder. They need it. They're not going to succeed in MLS without it. That's the only way they're going to get more out of Herrera, more out of Ferreira. And if they can get a true winger, proven, that's just going to elevate this team so much more. And yeah, maybe Nagamura would have been better with those type of signings. Maybe Tab Ramos would have been better with those
Yeah, but
type of signings.
now it's that, coulda, woulda, shoulda, maybe,
No,
perhaps,
but at the end, I think all these things need to start being addressed going forward, because that's the only way they're going to be sustainable in MLS.
Yeah, and then going now into the question that everybody kind of has in their mind of what coaches um would be on the short list or even in the list of becoming the new, Dynamo coach. So I kind of want to talk about what would be the qualities that we would like to see in that kind of coach. And my top one would be MLS experience.
But
That's what I would say.
that's what they said last time around, right? That was the big
Yeah.
key. And they went with Nagamura, maybe over a guy like Jimmy Lozano, for the simple reason that Nagamura checked that box of MLS experience. because he played in MLS and Lozano
Okay,
didn't. Right?
let me be more refined in
No,
what I want.
no,
MLS
no.
as
But
a coach experience.
right, and I agree with you there. And I think that's what it is. It's not just somebody that knows the league. It's somebody, to me, that has been successful in the league. I don't care if there's promising assistant coaches. This isn't the situation for that.
Exactly. I
Again,
think, and it's
this
like, I
isn't
want people to succeed, and it's amazing to have good opportunities and blah, blah, blah. But the team itself is a difficult team. So we
and I
need somebody
mentioned
that
it,
has experience to be able to handle that.
and I mentioned it last year too. Like, let's take Pat Noonan for example. He's having a good year in Cincinnati. They may make the playoffs. That's not a
Mhm.
coach I would have wanted here in Houston, because again, this isn't an academy for coaches. Houston is a bona fide market. It's an important
Mhm.
market. It has a big soccer fan base, and not that Cincinnati doesn't, but it's just
But it's a different
it's a
city and it's a different ambience too.
right. This city needs a proven coach, and again, what going back to what Ted Siegel and the message has been, um, the Houston Dynamo need to be a team worthy of the fourth largest city in the United States. Cincinnati, a market like that, that's a good job for a guy like Pat Noonan to get his stripes. Uh, Something like that's maybe what a Paulo Nagamura would have needed, right? I think here you bring in somebody proven. That doesn't necessarily translate to success. I understand, but I think you get somebody, and the thing is too, like there's very little. The short list is small, right? I
Mhm.
mean, again, what are the odds? Who's essentially out there? Who are free agents? What I would do, honestly, um, and I did ask Pat Onstad this week, what is the financial
Exactly. That's
backing
another
on the
important thing.
coaches if they
Mhm.
wanted to get, like what people are saying, if they wanted to get a just theoretically a Marcelo Bielsa or Tata Martino,
Well, I mean,
or any top coach,
Osorio
um,
even.
could whoever, could they put up the money to do it, right? And he said,
Exactly.
well,
Because
if
big
you
names is big bucks.
right, and if we wanted, because and on that said, I love the playing style. We were just talking about Bielsa and Tata Martino. He's like, if we were going to go that route, they're probably going to be the top paid coach in the MLS, or at least up there. That would be a big
Mhm.
financial commitment. We would go to ownership if that was the route we wanted to take and discuss it, right? And then Ted Siegel would have the say, similar to the Herrera signing, right? So I do think now there is a possibility there. That wasn't a possibility with the old ownership group. Wilmer Cabrera
Exactly.
got
A
the job
very,
because
very
it was
far dream.
because for as much as we heard about the search, no, it was Wilmer Cabrera or Wade Barrett. Those were your two options back then, right?
Mhm.
And I think now you actually have a bit more of maybe not a full pick of the whole world and what coach you want, but I do think there is certainly the
It's
budget
bigger.
there,
I believe it's bigger. I think that we have more possibilities
right?
to actually land a coach that also is a big name. And I think that's a big step. So that would be one of the things like we were mentioning of like the musts of having a coach. For me, it would be to have MLS experience as a coach, a bona fide coach, because again, like we mentioned, the different markets give different coaches different opportunities to grow and get their stripes. Houston is a location that is already very hard to go into because already it's very international and there's so many different cultures, and they're already following different teams that you really have to cater to enamor those fans to really want to follow the Houston and feel the colors. And if you're not winning and you're not showing the potential to win, it's going to be very hard, for somebody, to stop following or do the double kind of love with a Mexican team from Liga MX or a Colombian team or a Peruvian team or whatever team, and also follow the Dynamo as also their home base team. So it has to. It's the time is now. The World Cup is around the corner. I'd say around the corner in Houston in a couple of years, but the Ampus is going to start to pump up
Right,
in a couple of months, and it's the perfect opportunity to really work towards being a city of football. How they sell the
right.
marketing and et cetera and et cetera. I mean, you talk the talk, but I want you to walk the walk, and I think that the Dynamo needs to really step up. It's something that it's not. Oh, that would be nice if they step up. I think it's something that it's a must. It's not. It's no
Right.
longer. Oh, that'll be nice. It's like an obligation for Houston to be
And
successful.
right. And I granted maybe a guy like Marcelo Bielsa has a pipe dream, right? It's a huge bar.
I know,
Like it's a
but
huge leap.
at this
But
point,
Yeah, no, but the reason why I asked that question was because I wanted to see what is the financial backing. So if you have the backing for a coach like that, then you
Mhm.
certainly have a backing for what I'm about to tell you. I agree. They need a coach with MLS experience. There's few and far between, maybe. So go and get one from another team. You have that type of backing. Go and
Yeah.
negotiate.
Go
Go and
shopping.
negotiate with the Portland Timbers for Giovanni Tavarese, or go and
Oh,
negotiate with the Columbus Crew for Caleb Portner. I think those opportunities are there. Those are avenues that need to be explored. It doesn't mean that they're going to get them, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be successful.
but
But
you
I
have to
think
knock on doors.
if you want to be a successful team, right, and you want a proven coach, then you go and knock on the doors, like you said, of the guys that
Mhm.
have already proven it and have had success and at least can get you to the playoffs. And then if it doesn't work, then maybe you can move on from there. The other one I like to see is because of the qualities of the players you have here, right? Hector Herrera, Sebastian Ferreira. Maybe if Darwin Quintero sticks around, then go and get a coach that has been successful with those type of players.
Mhm.
Um, I keep saying it. Don't be afraid. Go get somebody from Liga MX. I would like to see Tuca just for the entertainment aspect of it, but you know, but
I
let's say
look, I Tuca,
Turco
I think
Mohamed,
he is very smart. Tuca can be very dramatic in the sense, and I've had the opportunity to interview him so many times, and to go to Monterrey and see him do, the trainings. Yes, he has a facade of being very, dramatic in the sense and outspoken and blah blah. But the man is smart. The
right?
man is smart. That's why he was, for so many years, he was with the same team and a successful team, not only a good team, but a very successful team. So he is very smart. I think that,
And
he
he's
has
done
the
it other teams in
capabilities.
Mexico recently with Tigres, obviously with a big budget, but he also had his time at Pumas. I mean, again,
Hmm.
the dramatic stuff comes out, but it's also, I mean,
Yeah, but we
let's
need
take into
dramatic. That's
consideration.
fine. I like to go cover. You know why?
No,
I love to cover those persons because I'll be the first one asking the questions. Because he's always like, primero las damas. I'm like, yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. So that's one aspect that I would be like, okay, Tuca, ¿cómo estás?
right.
So,
And
I mean,
honestly, though, he doesn't exhibit reporters unless the respect isn't there,
exactly.
right? I'd like to see somebody like that. For somebody like Turco Mohamed, who's obviously done it in different leagues,
He also
recently
has
been in
he also
Brazil,
has character too. So he would be
right?
one to also,
But as one, I mean, if he's one of the team like America, right, with all the pressure that was on top
pressure.
of that one
Yes,
season, I mean,
exactly.
why wouldn't he do it in MLS? Or if you wanted to even do an up and coming coach, right, the intelligent guy. I know Lacamon right now is the coach of the moment in Liga MX. He has a
Okay.
buyout clause, and I'm sure the Dynamo can match it again with that Siegel, and if he's willing to put money in, so there are names out there.
What
But
about
again,
the one
before.
that when you asked that on Twitter, some of the people that answered the question that you put out on Twitter, a lot of people, I want to say like two or three people kind of said, Tata.
Yeah, and Tata, I'm sure it'll be a name that comes up. The thing there is obviously first at the World Cup, and then what happens after that.
But he's not, I mean, to be honest, like I don't think he's
No,
gonna have a
no,
job after
no,
the World
but
Cup.
well, and we'll see what happens at the World Cup, right? I mean, what if he takes Mexico on a run? I mean,
Victor, I know you're Mexican, but stop it. We have to be
no,
honest. Like
no, but
Colombia didn't make it to, the World Cup por
right.
malos because they were bad. They didn't do what they had to do. But to really honestly say that
I
Mexico
guess
that
my point is,
has
and I
been
know
so good in the
people.
past, right now they're not going through a good moment.
And people want
So
Tata because he recently had success at Atlanta United. They won the MLS Cup in 2018. Um,
exactly.
but I think that's a complicated situation as well
Mhm.
because how long are you going to be negotiating with him? The World Cup's in November. How much is he going to be
He
focused
can
on
start
that?
right now. I mean, did you not see the last game that Mexico played? Tata's not gonna have a job. Tata's not gonna have a job after the World Cup, so we can might as well sign him right now.
Not maybe not with Mexico, but I mean, there's other opportunities. Obviously, Boca
Well, that's
Juniors
why
has
you
been
have to go
mentioned.
ask him now.
Well, and that's an avenue
But
that
I don't.
can
I
be
mean, I
addressed.
don't know. Honestly, I don't know if I would. I would see him as the Dynamo coach. Um, I don't know. Some people really they say they would really want him to be the coach. I have my reservations on some of his coaching styles. Um, but you know, I don't know. We'll see when like I
And he also
guess
had one of the best goal scorers in the history of MLS in Joseph Martinez. and Miguel Almiron as a playmaker. So those were two key pieces in Atlanta. Not to say that that's the only reason he won, but I mean, again, that goes back to what we're saying. I think you need a bona fide playmaker still, if you're gonna, regardless of whatever coach you bring in. So yeah, we'll have more time as things go on, as we find more candidates. Who's kind of
Osorio,
sounding.
he has no job either.
Well, and I would imagine that, I mean, if he has a good relationship with Hector Herrera from the national team days, that could be one. That's an MLS experienced coach that's out there, right? Had success with the New York Red Bulls. So I think there are options. There are plenty of options in Houston. Certainly not an unwanted city. People can play hardball and act and all that stuff, but Houston,
it's a good city to live in. I mean, look at HH and all those concerts having fun. You can have fun. Look at HH. He's already assimilating to the city. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, again, all that stuff is attractive. The coaches, the players, the style of life,
the food.
That's why, yeah. I mean, it's all a very desirable market. That's why you see more and more people shifting this way. Maybe a lot of people don't say it publicly, but there is interest in joining MLS. So it's certainly not an unwanted league or teams, and then especially Houston. So we'll see. But I think, as we go on, we'll keep exploring that. In the meantime, Kenny Bundy is in charge of the last 5 games. He's been moved up from Houston Dynamo 2. I would imagine that the long-term plan would be that he returns to Dynamo 2. While again, a more experienced coach comes in for next season, and then he may be an option down the line or whatever happens there. But I don't know, unless he just kind of blows it out of the water here in the 5 games. I don't know that he can be an option for the future. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, even if, I think you still need a more proven coach. You need somebody who has done it at the MLS level or any level in first division throughout the world. You need somebody proven. You need somebody that can garner the respect of players, with years of experience, players with egos, basically everything that constitutes running a first team. So we'll keep you updated here on the striker, on Inside the Hexagon. And of course, the upcoming game is against Kansas City. Ironically, Paulo Nagamura's old stomping grounds, old team, and he never got a chance to beat his old team, right? And against his mentor and Peter Vermees, maybe that's the guy you try to push from Kansas City. I don't know. I think he's too ingrained in Kansas, but there's many different ways. I think the possibilities are endless. And fans should definitely have their say, because there is look at the last coaching search. Victor Manuel Vucetich, he was supposedly candidate. He's off the table now.
I think he would have done it amazing.
He's off the table now, Jimmy Lozano. But going to Vucetich a little bit, and maybe that brings up even older coaches in Mexico, like Ojitos Mesa, like Efrain Flores, for example. I'll tell you why, because the first team is the immediate fix per se, right? But this isn't just a first team problem. This wasn't just a Paulo Nagamura problem, a head coaching problem. People say, why don't they play the kids? I mean, we've talked about this. This is problems throughout the club, all the way to the academy level. If you can get somebody, or even if that can be addressed later, but it's at some point, put that priority number 3 or 4 if if the first team roster is just ahead. But the academy, that situation needs to be fixed ASAP. Like, start of next year. They need to
this
figure
year.
Well, now, if even, that's something you can, because honestly, that's a big part of this whole picture too. The lack of having options, from the development system.
And especially if they want to bring up players and really say we have really good homegrown players. If we really want to say that.
Onstad mentioned it the other day in the press conference, and I imagine that's a message coming down from Ted Siegel. The lack of selling players, not making income on that side of things. There is real pressure now internally.
And Houston is huge, so you can find kids playing anywhere. So don't tell me there's no know where to pick players from, or help them grow to be amazing players. So that's not a problem. Just have them out to go to different places, different parks in Houston and the surrounding places, and you're gonna find a lot of talent for sure.
Right. So another year, another coaching search. We'll continue updating you as this goes along. Thanks again for another episode of Inside the Hexagon, and we'll catch you everything else. thestriker.com. Your one-stop shop. Check it out, free 30 days and if you like it, stick around. And I think you will. And we'll keep giving you as much as we can on the Houston Dynamo front, on the Houston Dat front, and as we go on to see who the next coach of Houston Dynamo FC will be. I'm Victor Araiza, Laura Gomez. See you next time.
Bye.